The early morning sun cast long shadows across the research compound as Dr. Mara Ellison reviewed the final preparations for humanity's first interstellar diplomatic summit. Through the reinforced windows of her office, she could see the sprawling complex that had transformed the once sleepy rural town of New Haven into the frontier of humanity's first contact research. "The Vorax delegation confirmed their arrival schedule," said her assistant, passing her a tablet displaying orbital approach vectors. "Their envoy shuttle will dock with the embassy station at 800 hours tomorrow." Mara nodded, her dark eyes scanning the information. At 42, she had spent the last 15 years of her career preparing for this moment, the culmination of everything humanity had worked toward since the Vorax Collective first made their presence known 3 years ago. "And our team?" she asked, brushing a strand of salt and pepper hair behind her ear. "Everyone's ready. The Secretary General will lead the formal welcome, followed by your presentation on human cultural exchange protocols." Mara set down the tablet and walked to the window. In the distance, the massive launch facility dominated the horizon, where regular shuttles ferried supplies and personnel to Earth's first orbital embassy, a gleaming structure of interlocking modules that represented humanity's greatest collaborative achievement. The embassy had been designed as a neutral meeting ground, a place where humans and aliens could interact without either species feeling disadvantaged. "They're watching us right now, you know," Mara said quietly. "Learning, assessing. That's your job, isn't it? To figure out what they're thinking?" Mara smiled. "Xenopsychology isn't mind reading. It's about finding common ground between radically different evolutionary paths." She turned back to her desk, where holographic projections displayed everything Earth knew about the Vorax. Exoskeletal humanoids with 6-fingered hands and compound eyes, evolved from hive-building creatures on a high-gravity world. Their technology was centuries beyond Earth's, but they had approached cautiously, establishing communication through automated probes before initiating visual contact. "Do you think they're nervous too?" her assistant asked. "I hope so," Mara replied. "Fear is universal. If they're afraid of making mistakes, it means they value this relationship." What Mara didn't say was that something had been bothering her about the Vorax communications. Subtle inconsistencies in their diplomatic language that her team had dismissed as translation errors, but which nagged at her professional instincts. She had included her concerns in her reports, but with the summit approaching, no one wanted to hear about potential problems. As darkness fell over New Haven, lights flickered on across the research complex. In her quarters, Mara reviewed her presentation one final time before trying to sleep. Tomorrow would change human history forever, one way or another. Unknown to anyone on Earth, aboard the massive Vorax mothership beyond the dark side of the moon, Commander Rock was finalizing plans of a very different nature. "The humans suspect nothing?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Their defenses remain minimal. The orbital station is populated exclusively with scientists and diplomats," the officer replied, manipulating a holographic display showing Earth's orbital traffic. "They have no dedicated warriors aboard." Rock's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Excellent. The High Command was wise to authorize this operation. A species so naive as to approach first contact without military protection is clearly unprepared for the realities of galactic politics." "What about their planetary defenses?" "Primitive and dispersed. By the time they organize a response, we will have secured the station and the research compound. The abduction team is prepared?" "Yes. Commander, Scout Ship Talon will breach their perimeter at 300 hours, Earth time. The scientists will be extracted and returned for interrogation before their orbital embassy even realizes what has happened." Rock's compound eyes gleamed in the dim light of the command deck. "The Vorax Collective expands through strength. If humans wish to join the galactic community, they must first learn this fundamental truth." At precisely 3:07 a.m., alarms blared across the New Haven research complex. Mara was jolted from sleep by flashing red emergency lights and an automated voice repeating, "Security breach. Orbital perimeter violation. All personnel to secure locations." She was pulling on her clothes when her secure communication device buzzed. The grim face of General Harris appeared on screen. "Dr. Ellison, we have a situation. A Vorax vessel breached our security zone 20 minutes ago. They've already boarded the orbital embassy and they've taken hostages." Mara felt ice in her veins. "How many?" "At least 12 of our top scientists. And they've hit the ground too. We have reports of abductions from the New Haven complex. The summit is cancelled, obviously. The Secretary General is being evacuated to a secure location. The Joint Chiefs are convening now to determine our response." Mara's mind raced. "General, let me help. I know the Vorax better than anyone." "Doctor, this is no longer a diplomatic situation. This is an act of war, which is precisely why you need someone who understands their psychology." Mara insisted. "Whatever they want from those scientists, I can help predict their next moves." The general hesitated, then nodded. "Report to Command Center Alpha in 30 minutes. But understand this, your peaceful outreach program is over." As Mara hurried through the corridors, she saw fear on every face she passed. The dream of peaceful first contact had collapsed in a single night. At the command center, chaos reigned. Military personnel had taken over operations from the civilian research staff, and real-time satellite imagery showed the Vorax scout ship already departing Earth orbit, presumably with the captured scientists aboard. "They hit us in 6 locations simultaneously," General Harris explained, pointing to a tactical display. "Precision strikes, in and out in minutes. They knew exactly who they wanted." "What about the embassy station?" Mara asked. "They've disabled its communications and propulsion systems. We have no contact with anyone aboard." Mara studied the intelligence reports. "This doesn't make sense. Why risk diplomatic backlash for a handful of scientists? The Vorax must know we'll respond." "Maybe they don't think we can," said a voice behind her. Mara turned to see Captain Leo Grant, a former firefighter who had joined the security team after retiring from emergency services. His weathered face was grim. "Maybe they think we're pushovers." "We need to prove them wrong," Mara said firmly. "I want to assemble a response team." General Harris frowned. "Dr. Ellison, with all due respect, we have special forces for this kind of situation, who are all stationed at least 12 hours away," Mara countered. "The trail gets colder every minute. We need to move now, with who we have here." "And who would that be? Scientists? Researchers? Ordinary people?" Mara said. "People who know this facility, who understand the stakes." The general's laugh was bitter. "You want to send civilians against alien military forces?" "I want to send humans to rescue humans," Mara corrected. "And I'm going with them." After heated debate, Mara prevailed, partly because conventional military forces were indeed too distant, and partly because no one else had a better plan. She was given provisional authority to assemble a volunteer team from the New Haven personnel. Captain Leo Grant was the first to join. 20 years of running into burning buildings teaches you a thing or two about rescue operations," he said simply. Next came Simone Park, a brilliant engineer who had helped design the orbital embassy's environmental systems. "Those are my colleagues up there," she said fiercely. "And I know every access panel and maintenance shaft on that station." Carlos Reyes, a former Olympic biathlete who worked as a physical trainer for the astronaut corps, volunteered third. "I can still shoot straight," he said with a grim smile. "And I've spent enough time in 0G to know how to move." By dawn, Mara had assembled a team of 12 volunteers, none soldiers, all determined. They gathered in what had been a conference room and was now an impromptu tactical center. "I won't lie to you," Mara told them. "We're outmatched technologically and militarily. The Vorax have been spacefaring for centuries, but they've made one critical mistake. They've underestimated us." "How do you figure?" asked Leo. Because they only took scientists, Mara explained. They bypassed security personnel, military liaisons, even engineering staff. They wanted our knowledge, not our strength. So, what's the plan? Simone asked. Mara activated a holographic display of the orbital embassy. We have two objectives. First, a small team will secure the embassy station, re-establish communications, and rescue any personnel still aboard. Second, we need to track the Vorax scout ship to locate our abducted colleagues. With what equipment? Carlos asked. We don't exactly have a warship standing by. Actually, we do, Mara said. The prototype interceptor in Hangar E was scheduled for delivery to the Orbital Defense Force next week. It's fueled and ready for flight testing. And who's going to fly it? Leo demanded. Mara met his eyes steadily. I am. I've logged over 200 hours in the simulator. Simulator isn't the same as actual combat. Leo objected. No, Mara agreed. But none of us are soldiers. Captain, we're all doing jobs we weren't trained for today. As the team prepared, Mara felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. These were researchers, technicians, support staff, not warriors. Yet something in their eyes told her they were ready for this fight. There was a resolve there, a hardness that seemed to have crystallized overnight. Simone approached her as they were suiting up in the lightweight tactical gear provided by the security department. I've been thinking about the Vorax technology, she said. Their systems are advanced, but they rely heavily on electromagnetic communication. If we could generate a targeted EMP... We don't have military-grade EMP devices, Mara pointed out. Simone smiled thinly. No, but I can build something from components we have here. Microwave transmitters, modified power cells. It won't be pretty, but it should disrupt their systems temporarily. Mara nodded. Do it, and anyone else with ideas. I want to hear them. We're not going to win this with conventional tactics. As Simone set to work, Leo gathered the team for a crash course in urban combat techniques. Keep moving, use cover, communicate constantly, he instructed. Most importantly, stay unpredictable. Whatever you do, don't act like civilians. Carlos, meanwhile, had been examining the Vorax scout ship's trajectory data. They're maintaining a holding pattern in near-Earth orbit, he reported, which means they're waiting for something, probably instructions from their command ship. Or they're preparing for another strike, Mara suggested. Either way, we need to move quickly. Within 6 hours of the initial attack, Mara's makeshift response force was ready. They had split into 2 teams. Mara would lead the pursuit of the Vorax scout ship with Carlos, Simone, and 3 others, while Leo would command the embassy station recovery mission with the remaining volunteers. As they prepared to board their respective vessels, General Harris approached Mara. This is against my better judgment, Dr. Ellison, he said quietly, but conventional options would take too long. You have 24 hours before I'm obligated to inform the Joint Chiefs that we've launched an unauthorized military operation. Understood. General, one way or another, we'll have answers by then. Good luck, he said, and then, almost reluctantly, and good hunting. The prototype interceptor rose silently from Hangar E, its advanced engines barely disturbing the pre-dawn air. In the pilot's seat, Mara felt a strange calm. She had spent her career trying to understand alien minds, to build bridges between species. Now she was hunting the very beings she had hoped to welcome peacefully. Tracking systems online, Carlos reported from the sensor station. I have the Vorax Scout's energy signature. They're on the move, accelerating toward lunar orbit. They must have received new orders, Mara said. Simone, how are those EMP devices coming? 3 completed, limited range, but they should work if we get close enough. Mara plotted an intercept course. The interceptor was designed for speed and maneuverability. Not firepower, but surprise was on their side. The Vorax had no reason to expect pursuit, let alone from a vessel piloted by a xenopsychologist. As they cleared Earth's atmosphere, the vastness of space opened before them. The orbital embassy station was visible as a bright point of light, now surrounded by the smaller lights of Earth's hastily dispatched security vessels. Beyond it, the moon loomed large, and beyond that, somewhere, the Vorax mothership waited. "Leo's team has docked with the embassy," reported Talia Wong, their communications specialist. "They've encountered Vorax security drones, but no living combatants so far." "Tell them to be careful," Mara cautioned. "The Vorax may have left surprises behind." The interceptor accelerated, closing the distance to the scout ship. As they approached lunar orbit, a massive shadow emerged from behind the moon, the Vorax mothership, easily 20 times the size of Earth's largest space vessel. "My God," whispered Carlos. "How do we fight that?" "We don't," Mara replied. "We find our people and get them out." The scout ship was now docking with the mothership, a tiny speck against the enormous alien vessel. Mara cut the interceptor's main engines and switched to maneuvering thrusters only, minimizing their energy signature as they approached. "I'm picking up communications between the scout and the mothership," Talia reported. "They're celebrating. Something about valuable intelligence acquired." "Can you translate more specifically?" Mara asked. Talia concentrated on her console. "It's technical. Something about human defense capabilities and confirmation of non-combatant status." Mara's eyes widened. "They think we're defenseless," she realized. "That's why they only took scientists. They're gathering intelligence on our technology because they don't consider us a military threat." "Well, they're about to get a surprise," Simone said grimly. As they watched, the scout ship disappeared into a massive hangar bay on the underside of the mothership. Mara guided their interceptor toward the same opening, staying in the shadow of the larger vessel to avoid detection. "Everyone ready?" she asked. "Once we're inside, we'll have minutes at most before they detect us." The team nodded, faces set with determination. They had trained for 6 hours for a mission that seasoned special forces would consider suicidal. Yet none showed any sign of wavering. "Approaching hangar bay," Mara announced. "Simone, stand by with the first EMP device." The interceptor slipped into the cavernous hangar, dwarfed by the alien vessels docked in neat rows. The Vorax scout ship was just settling onto a landing pad, surrounded by what appeared to be maintenance crews. "Now," Mara ordered. Simone activated the improvised EMP device. A silent pulse of energy washed outward, and instantly the hangar bay plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, seconds later, casting eerie blue shadows across the chaos of disoriented Vorax crews. "Docking complete," Mara reported as the interceptor settled beside the scout ship. "Weapons free, non-lethal force if possible. We want prisoners who can talk." They exited the interceptor in perfect synchronization, using the confusion to move swiftly across the hangar deck. The Vorax, with their exoskeletons and compound eyes, were physically imposing, each standing nearly 7 feet tall, but they seemed unprepared for direct confrontation. Carlos moved with the fluid grace of an athlete, disabling 2 Vorax guards with precision strikes to what xenobiology had identified as nerve clusters. Simone deployed a second EMP device when a security door began to close, shorting its mechanisms. "The prisoners would be taken to interrogation," Mara said, consulting the schematic they had extrapolated from limited intelligence. 3 levels up, central section." They encountered scattered resistance as they moved deeper into the ship. The Vorax soldiers were well equipped but seemed shocked by the direct assault. Mara realized they were fighting with a hesitation that suggested confusion rather than fear. "They don't understand what we are," she told her team as they paused at a junction. "They expected scientists, diplomats, not fighters." "We're not fighters," Talia pointed out. I was cataloging communication protocols until yesterday. But we're human, Carlos said simply. And humans adapt. Meanwhile, aboard the orbital embassy, Leo's team had secured the station's central control room. The Vorax had left only automated security systems behind, apparently confident that humans wouldn't be able to retake the station quickly. "Status report," Leo demanded, moving from station to station where his team was working to restore systems. "Life support stable. Communications partially restored. We can reach Earth, but not the interceptor," reported a technician. 6 survivors found in sealed lab sections, including Dr. Khatri from the Xenobiology Division. Leo approached the older Indian scientist who was being treated for minor injuries. "Doctor, what happened here?" "They came without warning," Khatri said, his voice shaking. "They disabled our security systems and demanded access to our research databases. When the security team resisted, they were eliminated." "What were they after specifically?" "Everything. Weapons capabilities, defense systems, military protocols." Dr. Khatri looked up with haunted eyes. "The strange thing is, they seemed surprised when our security team fought back. I heard one of them say something that translated roughly as unexpected resistance from non-combat humans." Leo frowned. "They thought security officers wouldn't fight?" "I believe they thought humans categorized as diplomatic staff would have no combat capabilities at all," Khatri explained, "as if we would be physically incapable of resistance." Leo activated his communicator. "General Harris, are you receiving?" "Go ahead." "Captain." "Sir, we have control of the station and are gathering intelligence. I think you should know, the Vorax don't seem to understand that civilians can fight." There was a pause. "Explain." "Based on survivor accounts, they expected no resistance from anyone not explicitly designated as military. They seem to have a fundamental misunderstanding of human capabilities." "That tracks with what we're seeing on the ground," Harris replied. "Their attacks specifically avoided military installations in favor of scientific targets." Another pause. "Captain, if they don't understand that all humans can fight, then Dr. Ellison's team might have a chance." Leo finished. "Sir, request permission to take a shuttle and provide backup." "Granted, but Captain, this doesn't leave this channel. If the Vorax think we're helpless, that's an advantage we need to maintain." Back on the Vorax mothership, Mara's team had fought their way to the detention level. They had sustained injuries. Simone was nursing a burned arm from an energy weapon, and one of their team was being supported between 2 others. But they had also left a trail of disabled Vorax behind them. "Life signs ahead," Carlos reported, checking a scanner. "Human biosignatures, at least 10 individuals, and about 30 Vorax between us and them," Talia added grimly. Mara assessed their situation. Direct confrontation would be suicide, but they needed a distraction. She turned to Simone. "That last EMP device, can you modify it to affect a larger area?" Simone considered. "If I overload it, yes, but it would be a one-way trip. We'd fry our own equipment too." "Do it," Mara decided. "On my signal, we'll—" She was interrupted by a sudden commotion down the corridor. Laser fire erupted, followed by the distinctive sound of Vorax communication clicks. Then, incredibly, human voices. "Move! Move! Secure that junction!" Leo appeared around the corner, leading a team of station security personnel who had clearly been through their own battle. His face broke into a grim smile when he saw Mara. "Thought you could use some backup. Doctor." "How did you find us?" Mara asked, genuinely amazed. "Tracked your interceptor's beacon," Leo explained. "And once aboard, we just followed the trail of unconscious aliens." The combined teams quickly formulated a new plan. With Leo's forces creating a diversion, Mara would lead a small group directly to the detention cells. Simone would plant her modified EMP device in the ship's central computer node. disabling ship-wide systems long enough for them to free the prisoners and escape. Once the EMP hits, we'll have maybe 10 minutes before emergency systems restore full functionality, Simone warned. That includes door locks, weapon systems, everything. Then we move fast, Mara said. Everyone clear on the plan? As they prepared to split up, Mara pulled Leo aside. Captain, what's the situation back at the embassy? Secured. And the general sends a message. The eagle has teeth. Mara raised an eyebrow. Military code, Leo explained. It means Earth's defense forces are mobilizing. They'll be in position for a full assault within 3 hours if we don't make it out. Mara nodded, hoping it wouldn't come to that. Despite everything, she still believed peaceful resolution was possible once the Vorax understood they had catastrophically misjudged humanity. The operation proceeded with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Leo's team engaged the Vorax security forces in the main corridor, drawing attention away from Mara's smaller group as they slipped through maintenance passages toward the detention area. Simone broke off with 2 others, heading for the computer core to plant the EMP device. 15 minutes, she said as they parted. Then everything goes dark. Mara, Carlos, and Talia reached the detention section with 7 minutes to spare. 2 Vorax guards stood outside the main door, their posture alert but not alarmed. They hadn't yet received word of the intruders. 3-1, Carlos whispered. I'll take the one on the right. Before Mara could respond, he was moving, a fluid shadow that crossed the space between cover and target in seconds. The Vorax guard barely had time to raise its weapon before Carlos struck. A precise blow to what xenobiology had identified as a neural cluster. The alien crumpled. The second guard turned, mandibles clicking in alarm. But Talia was already there, having circled behind during Carlos's attack. Her improvised stun baton, a modified research tool, delivered an electrical charge directly to the Vorax's exoskeleton joints, locking them in paralysis. 4 minutes, Mara noted, checking her timepiece as they approached the detention door. It was secured with a biometric lock keyed to Vorax physiology. Allow me, Carlos said, dragging the unconscious guard to the scanner. The door hissed open. Inside, they found 14 humans, the missing scientists from both the orbital embassy and the ground facilities. All were alive, though some showed signs of rough treatment. Dr. Ellison, one of them stood shakily. How did you find us? Explanations later, Mara said briskly. We have less than 3 minutes to evacuate before this entire section loses power. They quickly organized the scientists, many of whom were disoriented from interrogation drugs. Carlos and Talia took point, while Mara brought up the rear, keeping one eye on her timepiece. 30 seconds, she warned as they approached the rendezvous point where they would meet Leo's team. The corridor ahead suddenly filled with Vorax soldiers, at least a dozen, heavily armed and moving with purpose. They had clearly discovered the human incursion and were sweeping the ship methodically. Back, Mara hissed, pulling the group into a side passage. We need another route. No time, Carlos said grimly. They'll be between us and the hangar bay no matter which way we go. Then we fight, Talia decided, her voice steady despite the fear evident in her eyes. Mara studied the Vorax patrol through a reflection in a polished bulkhead. They were moving with military precision, but something about their formation struck her as odd. They were bunched too closely together, as if... They're afraid, she realized. They're expecting us to have weapons they don't understand. Before she could elaborate, the lights flickered and died. Emergency illumination cast eerie shadows as Simone's EMP device detonated somewhere deep in the ship. Alien voices chittered in confusion. Now, Mara ordered. They burst from cover, scientists and rescuers alike, charging directly at the Vorax patrol. The aliens, momentarily blinded by the power fluctuation and startled by the direct assault, fired wildly, Energy bolts sizzled past, scorching the walls. What happened next would later be described in a dozen different ways by those who witnessed it. Scientists with no combat training moved with instinctive coordination. Researchers who had spent their lives in laboratories ducked energy blasts and grappled with alien soldiers twice their size. It was chaos, but chaos with an underlying pattern, humans adapting, improvising, surviving. Carlos moved like water through the Vorax formation, disabling 3 soldiers in as many seconds. Talia used her knowledge of xenobiology to target vulnerable joints in exoskeletons. Even the scientists joined the fray. One elderly physicist wielding a broken piece of alien technology as an improvised club. In less than a minute, the Vorax patrol was neutralized. 2 humans had sustained minor injuries, but all remained combat effective. "What just happened?" gasped one of the rescued scientists, staring at his own hands as if they belonged to someone else. "Humanity happened," Mara said simply. "Come on, we need to reach the hangar before auxiliary power restores the security systems." They met Leo's team at the next junction, finding them similarly victorious after their own encounter with Vorax forces. Together, they rushed toward the hangar bay, where Simone was waiting with the rest of her team. "Ships are prepped," she reported. "But we have company coming, a lot of company." Through the hangar entrance, they could see squads of Vorax soldiers converging from multiple directions. The momentary advantage provided by the EMP was fading as systems came back online. "Get the scientists aboard the shuttle," Mara ordered Leo. "My team will hold them off long enough for you to launch." "Not a chance," Leo replied firmly. "We all leave together." "There's no time." "There's another option," interrupted one of the rescued scientists, a quantum physicist named Dr. Miyazaki. "The Vorax ships use a standardized docking protocol. If we could trigger an emergency decompression in the adjacent hangar sections, we'd clear a path and delay pursuit," Simone finished, already moving toward a control panel. "I can do it, but someone needs to keep them off me for 30 seconds. "Consider it done," Carlos said, unslinging a captured Vorax weapon. What followed was a desperate holding action. Carlos, Leo, and several others formed a defensive perimeter around Simone as she worked frantically at the alien controls. The first wave of Vorax soldiers appeared at the hangar entrance, only to be met with precise fire from the human defenders. 15 seconds, Simone called. The Vorax were advancing cautiously now, using cover and coordinated movements. They had adjusted to the human threat, no longer underestimating their opponents. 10 seconds. A massive figure appeared behind the Vorax soldiers, taller and more heavily armored than the others. Commander Rock had entered the battle personally. "Time's up," Carlos warned as the Vorax prepared for a coordinated rush. "Done!" Simone shouted triumphantly. Warning klaxons blared throughout the hangar as massive pressure doors began to close. The Vorax troops fell back, but Commander Rock charged forward, slipping through the narrowing gap before it sealed completely. "Go!" Mara ordered the others. "Get to the ships!" The humans broke for the waiting vessels. The interceptor and the shuttle Leo's team had arrived in, all but Mara, who found herself facing Commander Rock alone in the rapidly emptying hangar. "You," the alien commander said, his translated voice crackling with fury. "You are the diplomat, the peacemaker." "I am," Mara confirmed, circling warily. The difference in their physical capabilities was obvious. Rock stood nearly 8 feet tall in his battle armor, with 4 articulated arms ending in weaponized appendages. "How?" he demanded. "How do you fight? You are not a warrior caste." Understanding dawned on Mara. "We don't have castes," she explained. "Every human is born with the capacity to fight, to create, to learn. We don't divide ourselves by function." Rock's compound eyes gleamed with what might have been disbelief. "Impossible. No species evolves both intelligence and combat capability in all members. The energy requirements alone, And yet, here we are, Mara interrupted. Now, you have a choice. You can continue this attack and face the full consequences of humanity's unified response. Or you can withdraw and approach us with genuine diplomatic intentions. You think you've won? Rock's mandibles clicked in what Mara recognized as laughter. This ship carries enough firepower to reduce your precious Earth to cinders. And yet, you haven't used it, Mara observed. Which tells me the Vorax Collective has rules about planetary bombardment, laws, ethics. She took a step closer. We want peace, Commander. But make no mistake, every human on Earth, from our children to our elders, will fight if threatened. We are born ready for conflict, even those of us who choose paths of peace. A sudden movement caught her eye. Carlos, who had doubled back and now stood in the shadow of the interceptor. Weapon trained on Rock. The commander saw him too. Curious, your kind are full of surprises. Without warning, Rock lunged forward, his enhanced musculature propelling him across the space between them with frightening speed. Mara reacted instinctively, using his momentum against him, a basic self-defense technique taught in the mandatory personal safety courses all diplomatic personnel received. To her surprise, it worked. Rock tumbled past her, off balance in the artificial gravity. Before he could recover, Carlos fired, his shot striking the commander's armor but causing no apparent damage. Rock spun, all four arms extending toward Carlos, built-in weapons powering up with an ominous hum. Mara didn't hesitate. She launched herself at the alien commander, catching him in a flying tackle that sent them both tumbling into a zero-gravity maintenance shaft. The world turned upside down as they spun through the shaft, trading blows in the weightless environment. Rock was stronger, but Mara was quicker, and the zero gravity negated much of his physical advantage. Each time his armored limbs swung toward her, she pushed against nearby surfaces to evade, using the environment itself as both shield and weapon. You fight well, for a diplomat, Rock acknowledged after a particularly close exchange. All humans fight when they must, Mara replied, breathing hard. It's what we hoped you would understand without this demonstration. A blast door ahead began to close, the ship's automatic systems responding to the breach. Mara realized they would be trapped in the maintenance shaft if the door sealed completely. With a desperate push, she propelled herself toward the narrowing gap. Rock close behind. They burst through simultaneously, tumbling into a broader corridor where gravity reasserted itself. They landed hard, Mara rolling to absorb the impact, while Rock crashed more heavily against a bulkhead. To her shock, she found herself in the middle of what appeared to be the ship's command bridge. Dozens of Vorax officers stared at the human and their commander sprawled on the deck before them. Before anyone could react, the main view screen flickered to life, showing General Harris aboard an Earth Defense Force vessel. Vorax Command, the general's voice boomed. This is Earth Combined Defense. Your infiltration of our orbital embassy and abduction of our citizens constitutes an act of war. Surrender the hostages and withdraw from Earth space immediately, or face the consequences. Mara quickly assessed the situation. The command bridge was in disarray. Clearly, they hadn't expected Earth to mount such a rapid response. On the view screen behind Harris, she could see dozens of Earth vessels moving into formation. Rock rose slowly to his feet. Your species continues to surprise. Human. Perhaps the conquest assessment was premature. It was wrong, Mara said firmly, standing her ground despite being surrounded by Vorax officers. Humanity seeks peaceful contact, but we will never be defenseless. She gestured to the view screen where the rescued scientists could be seen safely aboard an Earth vessel. Your intelligence mission failed. Commander, you learned the wrong lessons about us. For a long moment, Rock was silent, his alien features unreadable. Then, to Mara's surprise, He made a gesture that her xenopsychology training identified as one of formal respect. "The Vorax Collective acknowledges its error," he announced, both to Mara and to General Harris on the screen. "We will withdraw from Earth space and reassess diplomatic protocols." 3 days later, Mara stood in the restored orbital embassy, watching Earth rotate serenely below. The Vorax fleet had indeed withdrawn beyond the lunar orbit, maintaining a respectful distance while new communication channels were established. "How are the repairs coming?" she asked Leo, who had been overseeing the reconstruction efforts. "Nearly complete. Security upgrades are in place, and we've incorporated some of the insights gained from Vorax technology." He hesitated. "Including more robust defensive capabilities." Mara nodded. The embassy was still a place of peace, but now it was protected by a citizen soldier guard drawn from volunteers across Earth. Scientists and diplomats trained alongside security specialists, each learning from the other. "The Vorax have requested to resume diplomatic contact," she told him, "with significant changes to the protocol. They're afraid of us now." Leo observed. "Not afraid. Respectful," Mara corrected. "They come from a hierarchical society where different castes are physically specialized for different roles. The concept of a species where every individual can both create and destroy. It fundamentally alters their perception of us. For the better." Mara gazed out at the stars. "I think so. True peace isn't built on misconceptions. The Vorax needed to understand that humanity's commitment to peace is a choice, not a weakness. And the next aliens we meet will hopefully learn from the Vorax's mistake." Mara smiled slightly. "There's a new clause in our first contact protocols. All extraterrestrial species will be informed that while humans prefer peaceful cooperation, we are, each and every one of us, born ready to defend what we value." A communication alert chimed softly. The Vorax diplomatic vessel was requesting docking clearance for the rescheduled summit. "Ready for round 2? Leo asked. Mara straightened her formal diplomatic attire, which now incongruously included a small sidearm, a requirement insisted upon by both Earth authorities and, surprisingly, the Vorax themselves. "Peace through strength," she said. An old human concept that seems to translate quite well across the stars. As the alien ship approached, Mara reflected on the dual nature that the Vorax had failed to comprehend. How humans could be both peaceful creators and fierce defenders, often within the same breath. It wasn't a contradiction but the essence of humanity itself. The capacity to choose peace while remaining ready for war. The docking bay doors opened to receive the Vorax diplomatic shuttle. This time, both sides understood exactly who they were dealing with.